Now, this week I went somewhere I've never been before, a waxing salon in Leicester. Why? To meet its extraordinary owner, Rebecca Dowdesdell, who for years has been fighting a dispute with one of the world's biggest corporations. Her story begins in an even more unlikely place, on the beach in Brazil. She only went to brush up on her Portuguese.
Brazil's got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of amazing coastline. The vast majority of the population live on the coast. Brazilians, just sort of through their heritage, naturally dark-skinned, dark-haired, and the women wear very, very small bikinis on Brazilian beaches.
And was that new to you as an Englishwoman?
It was, yes. The Brazilian bikinis were certainly an eye-opener, and probably a lot of people don't realise that the Brazilian wax really does emanate from Brazil.
Yeah.
And that is why they really do have a genuine need for Brazilian waxes, given the size of their bikinis.
So this is a question I've never asked this early in an interview before, but had you had a wax ever before you went to Brazil?
No.
Okay, so you had your first ever one in Brazil.
Correct.
And what did you think?
I was hooked.
And on her return to London, Rebecca wanted to carry on waxing. But try as she might, locating a good salon was harder than you might think.
I think at some point, soon after returning, I need a wax. I'm going to go and try and find a waxing place. And it was really hard. I could not find a decent wax in the UK. And bearing in mind, I lived in London then.
Wow. Okay, so for listeners in London, that will seem completely bizarre that you're talking only 25 years ago and you couldn't find somewhere to do a wax. I mean, they're on every major street in London now, it seems.
But back then, the beauty industry hadn't fragmented how it has done now. So a bad experience typically involved, poor hygiene. A Brazilian or a Hollywood wax is most or all hair removed from the entire intimate region. Mm-hmm. Hygiene has to be, or really should be, at the forefront of the agenda there. But, you had therapists dipping, so they dip a spatula in a pot to wipe the wax on you. They'd put the same spatula back in the pot.
Oh no, they double dipped.
Double dipped, and you imagine, again, a full Brazilian or Hollywood goes right from the front, right around the back, and wiping this wax on you and then putting it back in the wax pots.
Yeah.
They are going to be wiping spatulas on a lot of different clients.
Yes.
But with poor technique, you get bruising. I got huge kind of blood blisters. It just very, very painful. None of the girls had been taught how to do it, so they were self-taught. They were responding to the demand. They didn't know how to do it. They were quite embarrassed. And that just made for a very unpleasant situation for you as a client. Mm-hmm. Usually they'd keep your underwear on, and it's really hard to carry out a good wax with your underwear on. So really, from start to finish, the whole experience was just not very pleasant at all.
But despite having identified an obvious gap in the market, Rebecca wasn't an entrepreneur. Her background was in motoring journalism and marketing for car companies like Saab. But then came the financial crash, and suddenly Rebecca found herself at a loose end.
My work literally just disappeared overnight, and it was at that point, I guess, just everything came together. I thought, what am I going to do now? I just had this idea in the back of my head for 8 or 9 years. It's really hard for me to get a wax in the UK. Could I do that? Is that something I could do? I started researching it. I realised that waxing salons were a thing throughout Asia, throughout America. I knew that, beauty trends like that would generally come across to the UK. I just decided to bite the bullet and do it myself.
Which meant what?
Pouring all of the savings that I'd saved up from my writing career. So I don't have any training, experience, qualifications in the beauty industry. I'd never worked in a beauty salon. So, it meant, I guess, sitting down, just a lot of research, writing a quite old school business planning.
And what was on the business plan, though?
I had visions for a national chain of waxing salons. I knew that I wanted a brand that was distinctive. I wanted it to be cheeky, fun, provocative, bearing in mind the nature of the services we were dealing with. But I knew I never wanted it to be crass or offensive.
And what brand did you settle upon?
Eventually, I settled on the brand NKD.
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 What was your thought process?
I was fortunate because when at Saab, we'd worked with these huge General Motors agencies full of very creative, amazing people. When General Motors declared itself bankrupt, like me finding myself with no work, it was the same for a lot of these agencies. So I had some great contacts who I could have never ordinarily afforded, but at that moment in time, they needed work and they would work with anyone to stay afloat. So I got access to some really amazing creative brains, which helped me develop this whole brand from scratch. And they came back with several brand name options for me.
Do you remember what some of the others were?
One of them was Coco, which I stayed away from because of trademark concerns.
Because you think Chanel?
Because of Chanel.
Yeah.
Another option was the sort of Latin derivative of wax, and how you say wax in Portuguese and probably Italian is like Cera or Cera. But how do you pronounce it? Is it Sarah? Is it Chera? Sarah? And I that just would have been too confusing.
And what was the thought process behind NKD rather than just calling it Naked?
I think Naked was too in your face.
Yeah.
It was. I wanted something a bit more subtle.
So it hints at Naked.
Hints at.
But you can say to your friends or your husband or your mum, I'm going down to NKD to get a wax.
Yes,
without
absolutely.
having to say the word.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the full name was actually NKD, and then you had a set of brackets, open, close brackets, and then originally we were NKD bracket, the waxing boutique. So I trademarked NKD with the brackets, and the brackets were always very important to us because the whole idea was to focus on intimate waxing. I knew from my business research that it would be predominantly female intimate waxing. So the brackets basically signified, let's say, the female form.
Yes. Private parts.
Yes.
Sort of. Hint at that shape.
The labia,
yes.
if we're going to be.
You went there.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I knew that I needed a certain demographic and type of city, so I decided to open my first salon in Nottingham, despite the fact I was living in Buckinghamshire, and that's because I felt that there just wasn't the right kind of demographic close to me.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, having been to Nottingham a bit, it strikes me as the kind of place where young women in particular at the weekend really go out. It's one of those. It's sort of like Liverpool type vibe. There's very much like, let's go out, but let's dress up, let's wear a miniskirt even though it's February. It's that kind of market.
Yes, it is, and we've got two very big successful universities, so a huge student population, a young, forward-thinking, modern audience.
How did the business go?
We opened our doors on the first day and we didn't have any customers. I mean, I look back now and I just think, oh my God, what was I doing? I did not have a clue, but I was committed to it. I was passionate about it. And slowly, month on month, we started to get more and more customers. So by the summer, we were quite busy by then, employing several therapists. I'd had a salon manager from the start because I knew that I was not the best person to run this business. We then started quite quickly offering training because I knew that, you know, in the wider UK, so many therapists were really bad at waxing. We opened a concession in a House of Fraser store.
And a second salon because we're sitting in it.
Second
We're
salon,
in Leicester.
yes. So in 2017, I decided to open here in Leicester as well.
And that was going well until we get to the COVID era.
Yeah, 2019 was a good year, and then the pandemic hit. And, you know, it was horrible for everyone, but small businesses in particular. It was very hard for high street businesses, women-led businesses, because, you know, obviously the schools shut, children needed homeschooling. I have an entirely female workforce, so I went into the pandemic with a really good management team of probably 4, 5, 6 women, some of whom were part-time, but we all did it around our children, and we were all suddenly in this same really nightmarish boat of doing what we had to do to keep the business running.
And with the stores closed down, an obvious pivot for Rebecca was developing her own waxing-related products.
I think I just needed something positive to work on. So I don't know how really looking back, but I found some time to embark on some product development. So by then we were 7 or 8 years into the life of NKD. And many times over the years, lots of stakeholders and supporters of the company and different business mentors I'd worked with had said, why don't you do products as well? Your brand would lend itself so well to products. So yeah, we developed a range of essential waxing and hair removal aftercare products, exfoliators, an antibacterial shower gel, a moisturiser.
And did you in 2022 look into whether you had the right to put NKD on a bottle of cosmetic product, or did that not occur to you then?
So I had originally trademarked the NKD brand back in 2009, but because it was only the salons then, I'd only got it trademarked in class 44, which is for salons and services, not products, that is class 3. So to be honest, it didn't cross my mind that it might be an issue to apply it to the products as well.
What is the situation with the trademark from 2009 though? That's a long time ago.
Any trademark in the UK, it only lasts for 10 years. And
does it?
It does, yes. After 10 years, you get notified, and assuming that you are still using your trademark, you can just renew it and roll it over. So mine expired in 2019.
Right, so you're 3 years on and you hadn't renewed it.
Correct, yes. So there's a 6-month window before and after the expiry in which you can automatically roll it over, but it does require a certain amount of form filling and paying costs. It was on my to-do list, and then the pandemic hit and the salons were just closed so quickly and it fell off the to-do list.
Because on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't really affect you, does it? I guess you're kind of thinking, like, unless someone opens a salon opposite mine and calls it NKD, what does it matter, really? Like, why do I need the trademark? Was I a bit overzealous in the first place?
Yeah, it just wasn't a concern of mine. I guess I didn't know it had fallen off the to-do list, because if I knew, it wouldn't have fallen off in the first place. So when everything then opened back up in 2021, I realised that it had expired, and that rather than renewing it or rolling it over, I would have to start from scratch.
You have to apply as if you're a new business.
Apply as if I was a new business. But that didn't concern me too much, because as it was, the spec had changed, because I'd now got the products and they're in class 3 for products and cosmetics, rather than class 44 for salons and services. So I applied for the trademarks. We took the opportunity to revisit the branding and refresh it. And I decided with my very long-term graphic designer, he suggested that we move the brackets. So whereas the brackets had originally signified the female form, he made the very clever suggestion that we put the brackets around the NKD name to signify inclusivity, that we were waxing for everyone, products for everyone.
Yeah, a lot of men get waxes now, don't
yes,
they? Yeah,
and that we needed to, we decided to move them and give the brackets a new meaning.
This is complicated and legalistic, but that's for a reason, which is you've had to get your head around all this.
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
So I did the work and paid the money for my trademark applications, and then on the very last day that the window of opposition, before it closed, that anyone could put in an objection to the trademark, the Nottingham Salon received a letter signed for in the post, and it was from L'Oreal, the world's largest cosmetics and personal care company. And this letter said that they opposed the registration of my NKD trademarks. They wanted me to revoke all of my trademark applications and to stop calling the entire business NKD.
How did you react to reading that letter?
I don't think I was overly worried, because in my head it was so ludicrous. So this was the summer of 2022. I'd created the brand in 2009. I'd poured huge amounts of investment, love, care, passion into the brand. It was very well known locally. We'd built up a great reputation, won lots of awards. I'd added the products to it. At no point since 2009 had there been a problem with the NKD brand or any brand overlap. So to get this letter from L'Oreal, I guess it just seemed very strange.
What was their objection?
My goods and services, to quote them, were confusingly similar to their goods and services. So they own the Urban Decay makeup brand, and Urban Decay has a range of eyeshadow palettes under the Naked sub-brand. So they have the word Naked trademarked in class 3 for their eyeshadows.
I see.
And they said because of their Naked eyeshadows, that if I were allowed to re-register my NKD trademarks, it would cause confusion in the market. It would be detrimental to L'Oreal's sales because their Naked customers wouldn't be able to trust the veracity of their brand because my brand was causing confusion. So I would have to stop calling the salons and products NKD, change the business name altogether, and rescind my trademark applications.
So their product is called Urban Decay Naked, and yours is called open bracket NKD close bracket.
Essentially, they
and you do wax.
We do waxing,
and they do
hair removal. They do
products.
eyeshadow palettes.
I mean, it does seem laughably ridiculous that people would confuse those things, even though they're a similar word in one part of the brand.
Well, in the whole 12 whatever years that I'd been operating by then, not once had anybody ever said, "Are you the same as Naked? Are you owned by L'Oreal? Are Naked eyeshadow palettes and NKD related?" Yes, we are both in the kind of cosmetics and beauty market, but that is a huge, huge market. L'Oreal has only ever applied the word Naked to a very specific set of eyeshadow palettes, and we've only ever been about waxing and hair removal, and we're not Naked. We are NKD.
Yeah.
And so, for example, when you have to register for a trademark, you do a search to check that nobody else, you're not stepping on anybody else's toes. When I put in NKD to the UK Intellectual Property Office's website, Naked didn't come up because it is not the same word. It is spelt differently, pronounced differently. So in their letter to me, they said, something along the lines of, "We know you're a small business. You probably haven't done your homework, your research. You probably weren't aware of us. We're giving you this opportunity to get out of this. Revoke your trademark applications. Stop calling yourself NKD, and we won't do anything further," was the essence of it.
Or else what?
Or else they said that they would be taking legal action and that I would be liable for their costs if I lost, something along those lines.
And that was just the start. Still to come, perseverance, unfairness, and the high price of standing your ground. That's when The Modern Man returns, after this. Back to my conversation with Rebecca Dowdesdell now. To recap, it's 2021. She's just reapplied for a trademark for her waxing business, NKD, which she's been running since 2009. But now she's received a letter from L'Oreal telling her they oppose her application. So her next step then is to get some legal advice.
I spoke to an IP lawyer and they'd said, okay, the mistake you've made here, you haven't been tight enough in your trademark applications. You've applied for the NKD name in the whole of Class 3, which covers cosmetics as a whole. You don't need the whole of Class 3. Mm-hmm. You just need to tighten up your trademark specification for NKD. Make it clear that you have no interest in makeup, eyeshadow, anything like that. And we should be able to come to a coexistence agreement with L'Oreal very easily. This is very standard. It happens a lot. Don't worry about it. You will be able to coexist harmoniously, actually, as you have been doing for the last 12 years.
Which makes sense, because even thinking about other companies called Naked, there's Naked Wines, isn't there? And there's a smoothie, I think, called Naked.
There are so many
They're both
instances.
So I presume
Naked.
they've come to that sort of arrangement, right?
Yes.
Wines is different to smoothies.
Yeah, obviously they're not in the beauty industry, but actually there are lots of instances of Naked in the beauty industry, in makeup, and even in eyeshadows. But again, I'm not Naked. I've never been Naked. I am NKD. We're not spelt Naked. We're not pronounced Naked.
What was the reaction from L'Oreal?
Their response was, no, that is not good enough, essentially. So that took us into a long period of negotiation where back and forth between the lawyers, where we just tried to come to some kind of happy medium. I think they were obviously open to some kind of negotiation. I always believed, really as a point of principle, again, they're Naked, they do eyeshadow palettes. I should not have to reduce the spec of my trademark application down to such a point that it would be detrimental to my brand's growth. So at that point, I only had 3 products. What if I wanted to expand the range? So, for example, one of their suggestions was, okay, you can have the NKD name, but only against these 3 very specific products that you already have. But my point was, well, what if I want to grow and develop the brand? That doesn't leave me anywhere to go. And who are you to tell me what I can and can't do when you don't have a brand called NKD? I do. You're not in the waxing and hair removal field. I am. Why should you restrict what I do? And then one of their suggestions was that, well, maybe I would be able to expand the brand in the future, but I would have to go back and ask them permission for other products to apply it to. But I, as a small business, I don't have the financial means to do that. And again, why should I?
Incidentally, does Naked, their product, pre-exist NKD, yours, anyway?
So Urban Decay didn't launch in the UK until 2010. I launched in 2009.
Right, so you pre-exist them.
I pre-exist them.
So there's an argument that they should be asking you.
But they had registered the Naked trademark prior to launching in the market. So
okay.
The Naked trademark was actually registered in 2008, I believe. I launched and registered in 2009, and then they actually launched in the market in 2010.
Do you know what? I feel like your background in journalism and marketing is obviously really helpful here, or maybe it's a bit of a curse because you kept on fighting. But it must be really helpful to be able to interpret all these letters because, you're going to get a thing from a lawyer repeatedly spelling out why what you're doing has to cease and desist. That would be a lot for a lot of small business owners to come up against, and they would have just quit.
Yeah, and it was a lot for me, but gosh, it sounds so ridiculous. It's a brand. It is a brand. I've got children, I've got a husband, I've got family, friends. It's a brand. What does that actually matter? But it did matter to me because I had poured so much love, care, passion, pride, financial investment into the creation of this brand and then the development of it. We'd evolved it over many years and we had got a decent amount of recognition within our little sphere, but it was my brand that I had created. So,
but did you feel like they were trying to knock the wind out your sails with those letters?
The just overtly aggressive stance they took from the very first letter, it just felt very bullying, and I think I was fairly deep into this, several tens of thousands of pounds down, and then lots of other things starting to go wrong within the business before I think I truly understood the magnitude of what I'd got into. And obviously it's really hard because at what point, do you know what I mean? You put 5,000 into it and then you think you're on the cusp of coming to an agreement and, we just need to sort this and this out.
And lawyers are expensive. And when you say put £5,000 into it, that is literally just the cost of a lawyer, isn't it? That's their hourly fee to do these letters. You're paying just for someone to write a letter, £5,000.
Yeah, well, it would, to be fair, £5,000 was several letters.
Yeah. But nothing's happening.
No.
Just a war of words.
Yeah. But this is the thing, I just felt I was put into this impossible situation. What were my choices? My choices were to engage with them or to walk away from this brand that I'd spent the previous 12 years building up. And if I had have walked away, that in itself would have cost me tens of thousands of pounds. Again, the way that, we are just NKD through and through. All of my printed assets, all of my online, digital, the signage, all these bottles, I've got the branding. To walk away and change the brand when you've been trading for that many years and your brand is fundamentally so important to you, that in itself would have been such an enormous exercise and so expensive when I was still reeling from COVID and paying back all of these COVID debts. So I felt I was put in a totally impossible situation. Of course I didn't want to fight L'Oreal. Of course I didn't want to be sinking thousands of pounds into legal letters. But neither did I want to spend thousands, possibly tens of thousands, rebranding my company, my brand that was mine and that had done nothing wrong. And of course, L'Oreal know this, and they know that they're dealing with a small business owner, and they know that the longer and the more complicated they make their letters, the longer it's going to take for the lawyer to translate it into normal speak for me, the response. Every delay, every week or month that went by without them responding, where we were having to chase them, or every response that they did finally send, arguing over the minutiae, the smallest of points, the length of the letters, they knew the costs would just be racking up more and more and more for me, which is, of course, exactly what happened.
What happened? Where are we up to now in terms of financial outlay?
Well, luckily, my big legal bills have stopped. I've changed lawyers and they are being very generous in helping me sort that out. So to date, over £30,000 plus VAT. But that is in direct legal costs, and that is the tip of the iceberg. So at the end of 2023, I closed my Nottingham salon. So it was just after our 14th birthday. And it was all just too much. I'd got the 2 salons, trying to establish the products, got my family, the children, these mounting legal bills that I just couldn't pay, but I was kind of trapped in this process I couldn't get out of, too far in to get out of it. At that point, ironically, the cooling off period that we were technically in, it ended, and I could have actually walked away from it at that stage and said, okay, I'm done, I'm gonna rebrand. But then I would have had the costs of rebranding, plus these tens of thousands of lawyers' fees. So I felt like, again, I had no option but to press on. But
And pursue what? L'Oreal actually paying you for your legal fees?
No, just taking it to the next level where it goes to a hearing, a tribunal with the Intellectual Property Office.
Oh, well, so just for a judge or whoever
Yes.
they call it to make a decision?
Yes.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
They're right, you're wrong, you're
Yeah.
right, they're wrong.
Yeah.
And that 30 grand, that's a sunk cost.
But if I win, then the maximum costs that will be awarded to me is something like, well, they're less than £5,000.
Right, okay.
The flip side of that, of course, is that if I lose, which I don't expect to, but if I do, then I would only have to pay £5,000 of their costs. And if it hadn't have been like that, I never could have taken the risk, obviously, of taking them on in the first place. I can't afford my own legal bills, let alone theirs. So, yeah.
So that's what you're doing? You have a tribunal date, do you?
I was recently told that the hearing should be in February 2025. I believe, or my understanding is, actually it's being pushed back. It's not going to be this
How long have you been
month.
waiting?
Well, it's 2.5 years now since I got the first letter.
Fucking hell.
But even when the hearing does take place, the IPO, the UK IPO, is likely to take another 8 to 12 months to hand the decision down.
What?
So I won't even, it'll be 8 to 12 months after the hearing.
So it could very easily be in a year's time that you still won't know.
Yeah. And it's just...
And in the meantime, you've closed down a salon.
So I closed down. So again, back to the £30,000 in direct legal fees. I closed my Nottingham salon at the end of 2023. Incredibly hard and painful and horrible, horrible thing to have to do. But I did it for self-preservation. Something had to give, and that was it. But the costs of that, so I wasn't at the end of my commercial lease, so getting out of a commercial lease and again closing a business, a successful business that is busy, it's really expensive to close a business like that.
It also comes with legal costs.
And then you've got the legal fees associated with the closure. And then just the opportunity cost of everything that's been lost, of what I would have been generating in sales and profits over the last 14 months if my Nottingham salon had still been trading, the distractions and the kind of toll all of this has taken on me, and what I then haven't put into growing and investing in the remaining Leicester salon, in the products. But then all of the costs that you can't so easily quantify, to financial and non-financial as well.
If you had renewed the trademark before it lapsed, would that have stopped this situation from coming?
So if I'd have renewed the trademark, what L'Oreal couldn't have done was have tried to have forced me to rebrand the salons.
Right, okay.
So the salons could have carried on as NKD. I still would have had to have either fought the battle on the products or changed the name of the products.
This is a hard question to ask, but have you beaten yourself up about that, about the fact that it lapsed?
Yeah, of course. I beat myself up about that and the decision to take L'Oreal on. Why didn't I just roll over and rebrand?
Is that what you'd do now if you could go back in time?
I don't know. I ask myself that all the time.
Because of the stress?
Because of the stress and all the different costs of it. But I can't ever imagine just going, yeah, okay, I'll rebrand.
Because it's not right.
It's not right. I can't imagine ever. And knowing what I'm like as a person, again, back to the point of principle, but what I had put into the brand, I can't imagine ever just making that decision.
What toll has it taken on you?
It's just like this huge thing on my shoulder all the time. And I work really hard to not let it sort of impact on my personal life and with the children and with my friends. But it really weighs on my mind a lot. It's very, I think when you're in something like this, against someone like L'Oreal, it's really hard not to feel scared, intimidated, angry. You know, just really struggle with the injustice of it all.
Because it's a David and Goliath type situation.
Yes.
That in our system, in our legal system, whoever can afford the best lawyers, they win.
Yeah, and who is holding these companies to account? L'Oreal has shareholders, so many stakeholders. Oh my God, if you read their CSR policies, it's just a joke. How they say that they act compared to how they really act. Who is holding these companies to account? And of course, it's not just L'Oreal. There are lots of other examples of these David and Goliath trademark battles where the big boys have been overly aggressive.
I mean, from their point of view, having thought about this a lot, obviously, and having years gone over it, do you understand their argument? Do you understand at least why that original letter got written?
No, because I'm NKD and they're naked. I've got a really, really distinct and tight and well thought out and unique brand identity of my own that goes back 16 years. I have never tried to, free ride on their reputation, as they put it, to try and, dupe their customers. No.
So why do you think they wrote to you? I mean, what do you think is motivating them?
Well, I think
just someone's job. They have to do that.
Yes, I think they've got retained lawyers who have to justify their existence. I think their wider strategy is to, they kind of keep these huge rings around their trademark. They're so much more aggressive than they need to be because it stops anyone getting anywhere close. Most people in my position would have walked away. Very few people would fight them, and they know that those who do fight them, they know that what goes on to happen, and that's what is
that you run out of money.
Yeah, and I feel I've walked straight into their trap. I am exactly where they wanted me. I'm tired. Do you know what I mean? I'm poor, I'm overwhelmed, I'm now struggling with the rest of the business. They have got me exactly where they want me, and they know that by sending out these letters, ultimately, they're going to win.
Do you feel they've won even if you win then?
At this point, yes, there is no winning for me. I remain convinced that the only thing that would make L'Oreal do the right thing is if I can take this to the court of public opinion and there is pressure on them, they don't want to do the right thing. They want to be seen to do the right thing.
Well, again, this is your background in PR, isn't it? You understand how negative this could look for them. I mean, you even wonder whether, because it's such a huge corporation, does their UK CEO even know about your case? Has it even crossed their desk yet? If you met them at a party and you explained the situation, would they back off? You don't even know how high up the chain it goes, do you?
No, I don't. But what I do know is that they've got a very sophisticated, essentially, whistleblowing system. So again, they go very big on their ethical principles. They want to do the right thing. So they have this, it's called L'Oreal Speak Up, and it's a mechanism for any stakeholders, whether you're an employee of L'Oreal, a customer, a supplier, just a member of the public. If you have an ethical concern, you can submit it via this secure website, and it will allegedly go straight to the desk of their chief ethics officer, who is allegedly on their board.
So this you've tried,
in Paris.
Yeah.
So this I have tried, and originally I had quite high hopes. I thought, well, they probably don't know what's going on. It's probably these overzealous UK lawyers, and once people realise what is actually happening here, and actually all you get back is letters saying we can't comment on this, our legal team is dealing with it. So the only hope I have of kind of winning, in inverted commas, even if I win, which I do expect to, I will have lost so much.
Do you buy L'Oreal products?
But this is the thing. They've got some great products, and you know what? I'm almost ashamed to say I do. And this, I do buy some of their products still. But, they've got the power to be such a force for good. You look at their R&D and their innovation and, probably the innovation around things like SPFs and, sun creams and making that into makeup that people actually want to wear. And, they can be such a force for good. But so why are they using their power in this way as well? And all the messaging they put out about empowering women, supporting women. And then you look at what they've done to me. There's lots of examples of companies doing wrong by other companies, of businesses in need, of people like me struggling for different reasons. To me, it's a really big deal, but to everyone else, it's not, is it?
Rebecca Dowdesdell. We will keep you up to date right here on the show about what happens in her case. In the meantime, if you would like to support her after hearing that, one thing you can definitely do is buy her products. I picked up the all-over body cleanser for my wife, and it smells amazing. I put a link to where you can shop online and support Rebecca's business in the show notes to this episode. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for L'Oreal has said, quote, "We are wholly committed to resolving any misunderstanding there might have been with Rebecca Dowdesdell. From the beginning of our exchanges with her lawyers in 2022, we have communicated an offer that supports her business aspirations whilst respecting our long-standing trademark rights. We look forward to resolving this matter in a mutually agreeable way." Okay, next up, your questions, your kinks. It's The Foxhole with Alex Fox. That's after this.